Thank you for being on the Future Drop podcast.
Thank you for having me.
I fondly and vividly remember when we first met. I remember it was right after you started CodeStakes. Our company has always struggled with hiring developers. CodeStakes received investment from strong ventures, so I've been watching you grow since then. I also remember hiring quite a few developers through CodeStakes. So I really appreciate you being here today. It would be great if you could give a brief explanation about CodeStakes.
CodeStakes is a short-term, intensive immersion program so that you can study development and get a job as a developer. We create and operate a coding bootcamp that helps people.
How many years has CodeStakes been around?
Well, if we count from when we first started as a sole proprietorship, we began in 2015. We've been in business for 10 years.
The business model of CodeStakes is actually quite interesting. There are so many interesting aspects, so I'd like to ask you about them. How did you come up with this business idea? I'm curious about how you got started.
At first, I had a similar problem. I went to a liberal arts college. While I was studying, I wanted to learn coding. I thought I wanted to learn this and develop the service I wanted. But that is what is needed in the actual field. There really weren't any good places to learn development in Korea. So I looked into transferring schools or transferring to another university. I looked into schools, but there was nowhere I could learn well. How can I learn this since there is no place where I can learn it easily? I wondered if I could create what I wanted. While I was looking around, I found out about coding bootcamps in Silicon Valley. You can immerse yourself for a year. While studying, you will learn the development required in the actual field. I could develop any project I wanted. I've also heard it's a great option for those who want to get a job as a developer. I've heard a lot that it can be a good option, so I looked at that. I started thinking that I should go to Silicon Valley in the US. So when I went there myself, I could definitely see that the education was different. Take the initiative to learn and study with peers. Also, while developing actual projects there. The whole process of learning through projects was really impressive. So I thought, you can grow this fast. I started to think, why isn't this kind of education available in Korea? I felt a bit disappointed and thought it would be great if there were. So I thought, let's create this kind of educational program in Korea. That's the thought I ended up having.
Back then, there were probably a lot of coding academies in Korea. So you actually went to Silicon Valley and took classes there. I knew there were some good items in Silicon Valley. Even if you come up with an idea or concept, I'm curious about how the business got started. So I want to ask a bit more in detail.
At that time, I hadn't even graduated from college yet. My only corporate experience was a 3-month internship at a startup. So I am not very afraid or a bit scared about any attempt or beginning. I think I didn't have a lot of worries. They say ignorance is bliss. So I don't know much about many things. I just thought, let's give it a try. So I want to make this. But how do I do it? When I thought about it, what kind of things would be needed to make this? So I looked for people who could help me with what I needed and sent them a message asking for help. We need to educate, so we create lectures. We need people to teach with us. We need space, and we need to let people know about this. We need ways to inform and also this. We collaborate with companies to create education. It is also necessary to link recruitment, so I looked at the list of necessary things. I reached out to each person who I thought could help. A lot more people helped out than I expected. Even though it was just starting out, Google and LinkedIn. People who are currently working in these fields also helped out with the lectures. When we first mentioned that we were creating this kind of training, Naver offered to help us out. When holding a session, they rented me a space in Gangnam Station. Also, Future Play, a startup investment company, is starting for the first time. Even though it is an educational program, they introduced a lot of companies that they invested in. We can work on collaborations with companies, connect them for job placements. So, when I posted on Facebook that I was going to create this kind of training, a lot of people from various startups shared it. So, a lot of people around me helped spread the word about this. So because there were so many helpers there now. When I first started, I was on my own, but I think that's what allowed me to take that first step.
I remember back then on Facebook, I saw a post from Primer, and it really stood out to me. Since I'm in a position to hire people from coding academies, it feels like I just learned the text and nothing more. People from CodeStakes have hands-on experience applies in the real world. The languages that are currently being used in the field, starting with basics and working on projects, gave me some experience. Even though they are good raw materials, they are at least the minimum necessary, something that can be used in active service. It felt like I just learned it, so I definitely remember getting a lot of help back then. I think CodeStakes was really the starting point for me. To grow, there are a lot of steps that are necessary. In that sense, when you think about it, It could be called a quantum jump, the starting points for growth and the factors that could contribute to it. How do you grow things like that? It would be great if you could share them one by one.
From the beginning, we didn't have a clear idea of how much we would grow or to what scale we would reach. And we didn't start with a precise calculation of how much growth we could achieve. As I've been running it, there were a few things that students felt were barriers. One was obviously the education needed to participate in the program. The cost of education is still long-term to cover our operating costs. So, the price inevitably had to be above a certain level. So, there were students who wanted to participate but had difficulty coming. So, there was a student from Kanwon-do who studied part-time with us every weekend. I see people learning and growing so quickly. I thought that if this friend studied a little more, he would be able to grow well enough. Right before that student was about to enter the full-time development program, they mentioned that the tuition was a burden, making it hard for them to participate in the learning. We lacked investment in cash, but had an income share agreement model. We weren't receiving investments or anything like that. It wasn't very generous, but it was called an income share agreement. When you join the learning, you start without any cost. Once they successfully get a job and their income reaches a certain level. At that time, we were learning through a model where we shared a portion of the income. We were researching a model that would allow students to pay for tuition. So at that time, we still had a huge financial situation and a perfect model. I didn't have any contracts like this or anything like that. I wanted to give this student that opportunity. That's how we first started the tuition payment model. But after that, I wanted some models like this. We saw that there were a lot of people who needed and were suitable for it. So, we are reaching more students through this income sharing model. Let's make it so that you can participate in learning, so we continue to introduce it and make it more known. Giving them more opportunities really helped lower the initial barriers for students. Secondly, since we were operating offline, because we do business with physical location constraints, the number of people we can receive per technology, we faced limitations in accepting new students as we kept expanding the space. And from the student's perspective, it concerns the provinces or other places. There were even people who wanted to learn while they were overseas. So, they had to come to places like Seongsu or Gangnam in Korea. There were also geographical barriers to entry. Then suddenly, COVID hit. So during the corona period, everyone is working from home. They naturally started thinking about learning from home. So many students take our course not only offline. When we opened it up online and started recruiting more students, they naturally accepted that and started signing up. So, the geographical barriers started to disappear. So when we were able to overcome the geographical and financial barriers, we had the opportunity to grow quickly. And then there's also the unique characteristics of Korea. I started working with the government in Korea. At that time, the government also had many. We were spending our budget on talent development, but we were doing it in a different way to develop new technologies. They mentioned that they wanted to develop talent, so they reached out to us. So we started discussing what kind of programs we could create together. In the process of discussion, when the government created a program to educate students for free, we were able to get involved pretty quickly. So, by working with the government, we were able to lower the barriers to entry even more, to provide more students with learning opportunities for free. With those opportunities coming our way, I think that's where our growth momentum really started.
Like this. In a way, we also share the profits. Then we also started offering online education. The government is looking to provide more support in various ways. Students have been using Code States so far. How many people have gone through the program? I'm just curious.
Those who have learned and found jobs through our boot camp. There's more and there's more of us. We provide training for company employees, but broadly, there are about a few thousand graduates from the boot camp. About 10,000 people have participated in our boot camps and programs. They've been able to learn and grow.
Oh, that's cool. So, Code States has. Of course, like this. There are definitely areas where we can grow, but there have also been a lot of crises along the way, right? I'm curious about what kind of crises you remember and how you overcame them.
I think there were maybe one or two major ones. One is that when we first started our business, our team members, I don't think there were even 10 people, but in the process of doing business with the early team members. At one point, there was a time when suddenly all the team members said they wanted to leave. In the end, everyone left, and I was the only one left. We built the team back up to about 8 people, with 1, 2, or 3 members joining in. I'm good enough for those team members. I might not have motivated them enough, or maybe I didn't manage them well. For various reasons, anyway. All the team members I didn't take good care of left. How do I keep this running? Can I really do this all by myself again? I was thinking, should I just quit? I was really worried about it, but there were still students who kept studying during that time. So I told the kids that I would pay it all back. Then again, there are other promises made. Unable to meet duties. So we thought we had to find a way to make it work again. I looked for people I could work with and asked for help again. Let's try to do this together. I really hope you can help out. After that time, I reached out again to those who had helped me. When we talked about it, they said I pleaded with them pretty desperately. I don't really remember it well, but I asked for help while going through that. So, one by one, a few people started to join back in. From that point on, I started running things again. There was a thought I had during the early days of starting the business that helped me keep it going. There was also a time when our business was growing really fast. We grew our sales to 500 million, 1 billion, and 2 billion. We were seeing growth like 10 billion, 36 billion, and it just kept multiplying. The scale was getting bigger, and the team members went from around 22 up to 270 people in just 2 years. We experienced rapid growth within 2 to 3 years. At that time, there were several internal issues. There was an incident where a significant portion of our sales just vanished all at once. So, as those revenue sources quickly disappeared, we had to let go of quite a few colleagues we were working with, and it was really chaotic at that time. The company is looking to build long-term relationships with a variety of customers. Some solid barriers that we hadn't addressed internally. I wonder how it would have been if we had built a stable structure that allowed us to grow generating my own income. As we relied on a single customer and simplified our business model to focus solely on that. The reason I couldn't create other business opportunities or business models, I realized that we had created a significant risk for the company. It was an opportunity for me to reflect and reminisce a lot. But it was a big crisis. We still had capacity. It was a big crisis, but we had some capacity to handle it. There was a lot of internal chaos. All the C-level executives I was working with ended up leaving too. A lot of good team members ended up leaving too. I was also thinking about how to restart the business. Then again, I like it now. I thought about restructuring the business in a way that focuses on the strengths that we can do well. So it was a crisis, but I took it as an opportunity, and now I am. I'm focusing on a business model that really highlights what I love and what I'm good at.
Yeah, it seems like every company has to face some kind of crisis. As you mentioned, all founders must handle team members leaving. It's something that can't be avoided and is bound to happen. Something you can't avoid. It's only natural it happen. It's always a common thing for C-level executives to leave the team. So that's how it is. In the end, founders have to take responsibility and move forward. Despite the crisis, opportunities emerged. Growth shows different outcomes now. Still, new opportunities start to become visible. In a way, it will be different to see new opportunities and growth. So in a way, it is different now. Your personal growth in the current situation of Code States. I'm curious about what new opportunities you've noticed.
So, while working at Code States, it's also part of my nature, and it's also a characteristic of business in a company. I keep seeing new changes in technology as new technologies emerge and develop. So, I also had to train the assistants needed for that. As I did that, I naturally continued to use that skill. I think I've been able to see changes pretty quickly. So, blockchain, artificial intelligence, cloud, etc. As new technologies and trends emerge, we quickly learn about them. We also thought a lot about how we could turn that into education. So, in the market of technological change, we didn't just focus on education. I've been thinking a lot about the opportunities to do business in that market. So, in our case, we also have various technologies. You're doing well with your businesses in the midst of change. As I got to know those companies, I started to see their businesses and the potential they have. If we can't go directly, then let's make some investments. Let's try to create a structure where we can share the upsides of growth together. Let's try to create a structure that allows us to share that. On a company level, we've been somewhat passive about it until now, looking at investment opportunities and the things we had reinvested in. Investing in mutual growth is our goal. Investing in companies and markets where we can grow together has also become a key focus for our company. We've made it a key focus for our company. We could also start a business from scratch ourselves, but even so, within the capital we have, I've also been thinking about how to acquire companies and further develop the business together. So, we ended up acquiring those kinds of businesses. Also, rather than starting everything from scratch myself, we work together. Also, young entrepreneurs who can see business opportunities and take on challenges. We are currently developing by creating a business together with these partners. Now we continue to do business together rather than alone. We're looking for opportunities to invest, start, and acquire businesses. It's exciting because we're expanding our scope now. We're expanding our territory.
This is getting interesting now. One thing I'm curious about from what you just said is, you had mentioned that you acquired something, right? The company you acquired is. I remember that time, the future play you mentioned at that time. It's a case where you acquired a company from the investment portfolio.
The company that Future Play had acquired. We just ended up acquiring it again.
The company itself. I'm curious about how the acquisition story went.
Yeah, when you keep doing business for a long time, the most important thing in business is people, right? Who this person is and whether they would indeed be a good fit for us. I'm curious about what kind of personality, strengths, and attitude this person has. In a short period of time, I have a resume, a self-introduction letter, and one or two. I feel like it's hard to really get a good understanding in just a short interview. So, it's the same during the hiring process and even after hiring. Even among coworkers, we work together. But it's tough to know what kind of personality and strengths this person has. It's tough to keep things going while knowing them well. I noticed that our team is voluntarily doing some assessments and workshops. This is about diagnosing each individual's strengths. We talk based on our strengths and try to understand each other as team members. It was a type of assessment and training that helps us collaborate better together, even within us. I heard the suggestion to try out those assessment tools and workshops, so I decided to give it a shot myself. We tried it out in our leadership team and even across the whole company, but it actually worked really well, even if we laugh at ourselves internally. My strengths are imagining and combining new ideas. When you create a new idea like that, you can quickly implement it and push it forward. I have become more aware that these roles, which push things to keep progressing, have their strengths. I realized that in some areas, I might be relatively lacking in strengths. I started thinking that I need to team up with members who have these strengths. I started thinking I really need to get to work. So about tools. In a situation where we had a lot of positive perceptions, our investors. CEO Kim Seo-jun of Hashed has a connection with Future Play. Future Play is talking about this business. They mentioned that they are also looking for new investors. So we also ended up making investments and acquisitions. I was also thinking about seeing business opportunities and the need to grow. And it could really help with the growth of people, enhancing our understanding of them. I was looking at various business opportunities, not just focusing on education, but with a broader perspective. So as soon as I heard this, we talked about it and went through the due diligence process. We definitely need to acquire this tool. We also did a lot of reference checks. We also got insights through the representative of Musinsa, our shareholders. Also, I wanted to hear about the reactions when we went to Musinsa. In the end, we decided to go ahead with the acquisition.
What's the name of that company?
It's Tanagement.
Tanagement. Like. If that's the case, then I'm curious about what you were talking about earlier. Did the leadership team at Musinsa do this too? Or did they look at it from the perspective of the whole company?
I think Musinsa handled it within a specific team. Crafton divides its entire leadership into team leaders and department heads, so all the leadership. We even did diagnostics and workshops together, also recently with companies like Samsung Electronics and such. In large corporations, there are certain teams that. We're also training expert coaches who can effectively utilize this tool. You take the tool to our internal team members and team leaders. Soon, an expert will be trained as an internal expert. So, that's the way they help with coaching education. The leadership team has built up various ways to utilize the tool for those who are being promoted. It seems like you're also using it for workshops with various teams.
Thinking about what you just said, since Code States already has an existing customer base, this customer group and the customers of Tanagement service, I can definitely see that there's some overlap between them.
Yeah, since we also do corporate training together. There are some companies that want to provide training for recruiting developers. These strengths-based assessments and workshops. It seems like companies are looking at these things more broadly.
You mentioned, like, the investments as well. Among the places you've invested in, there are quite a few in the cryptocurrency space, right? So I think it would be good to talk about that. These days, it seems like the market is really booming. Since everyone is seeing the news, among the places you invested in. But the places that the public would probably know are SUI, Story Protocol. I have a feeling there's a story behind how you got into investing. I'm really curious about that.
Before I really got into investing for the purpose of a company, when I see new business opportunities matching my personal inclinations, even if it's not a business that aligns with the company's incentives. I personally feel like I want to get involved in and support the businesses I'm interested in. So it seems like that was done through investments. In the case of Story, I actually watched it on YouTube. There was an interview with the founder. I found it really impressive. How you started the business and then managed it along the way. The process that ultimately led to the sale to Kakao. I found it really interesting to hear you talk about all of that, and it left quite an impression on me. I went to New York, and when I went to a restaurant for breakfast, I saw the founder of Story sitting right in front of me. Oh, it was just a coincidence. If I hadn't watched that YouTube video, I probably wouldn't have recognized him. I kept debating whether I should go up and talk to him or not. But I made up my mind to go talk to him, and he actually came over to my table. And I know you. I have a mutual investor, so I know him. And let's talk again later. We had such a brief chat and then parted ways. That became the reason, and later when he came to Korea, we agreed to meet again, so we met up and talked. Now that I've started the company, I'm looking at new business opportunities. That was the Story Protocol. What are your thoughts on the vision of the story when creating this? And how we're going to move forward together, helping each other out with good things. And also new things. You also talked about the investors. So, I also found it an interesting idea because I had such a vision. Register, license and remix IPs on the blockchain. And it creates a new layer of structure that can compensate creators and fans for that. I found it really interesting myself. I happened to learn about those opportunities and was able to grab them. So when I think back to that time, I've always been interested in new technological changes. And when I saw that, an opportunity came up to meet someone. I was just debating whether to go or not, but I decided to take action and reached out. And after that, through our conversations again, I resonated with that vision and started to rely on that direction. After I decided that I definitely needed to invest in this, I started gathering funds. He said he wanted to invest with my money in us. So, we formed a group and ended up investing in the story at that time.
That's such a beautiful story.
It was a bit of a coincidence, but I happened to run it. It seems like it's produced some results and there's good news coming soon. It seems like it's going to be announced soon, so I'm really looking forward to it.
I'm really looking forward to it, and it's been a few days now. At that time, was that before a 16Z invested?
A 16Z was involved from the very beginning. Hashed and a 16Z participated in the seed round. At that time, I got to participate again Now, while I was investing, I was also lucky enough to advisor for again. I got another opportunity to participate and help out. I'm making an investment by creating a combination. I'm making and operating this combination. Investing wasn't the only challenge. There were also company issues. It was tough to have each as a shareholder, so I used my partnership to navigate those. When it came to receiving my investment, there were situations where it was tough to have each individual as a shareholder one by one. So, through my partnership, I was able to do that. They helped me with modeling without expecting anything in return. At that time, I also received rewards for the story. Now that I think about it, that's a huge deal. I think it's going to turn into a great outcome, right? At that time, Coinbase CTO and seeing so many great people onboarding, I've come to realize even more that this project is getting a lot of support from many people. I think I learned a lot and got really inspired by participating more.
It's definitely a good opportunity, but in reality, from the perspective of a founder, when receiving investment, someone has to be a member of the cooperative. Actually, it's actually good. It definitely makes things easier, for sure. So, what do you think about the projects that the public is most familiar with? It seems like those would be the ones to get involved with. How did you end up investing in SUI?
In fact, SUI and other blockchain projects. I also had thoughts of wanting to invest. I've seen a lot of opportunities and situations from other funds. So, new projects are coming out, and it turns out these projects are raising funds. I was continuously monitoring that and participating with other funds. At that time, SUI had passed Series A. It looked like it was in the growth stage for the next step, but still, it wasn't fully underway yet. Before the mainnet token launch and all that, as they work on implementing their vision a bit. What are the differentiating factors and what partners are we working with? I heard they were trying to develop projects. So at that time, there were also some Korean companies in the gaming sector that SUI was collaborating with. Those companies' project development and partnerships, SUI is making much faster blockchains. Or, in the form that SUI speaks, it's much more, creating fast blockchains. And as I was talking about how to further enhance performance, I saw that their team had already done this before. The team that was achieving results in some blockchain project at Facebook also. Early creations, investments, and growth. Showing opportunities to grow. They were in a stage where they were getting good early investments and growing. Still, I did end up investing a bit. Because the valuation was still at a growth stage, it was quite significant. So, when I decided to invest at this level of valuation, I was thinking about how much upside opportunity there could be. I did invest a bit. If the project offers such opportunities, I thought, I can invest. I didn't expect such rapid growth. I thought, I can take a bet on this, so I went ahead and made the investment. Honestly, growing this fast is pretty impressive. The upside keeps going back and forth now and now. Even looking at the valuation, it's been bouncing around above 40 billion. Even these days, I haven't thought about it that much, so I couldn't do it. At that time, SUI was attracting investment based on the materials they presented. According to them, there was a logic that could take them up to 300 billion. They talked about how they could capture value and how the valuation expectations could be like this. But honestly, I didn't really think about it that much in the long run. I hadn't really thought about it in the long term. Good reputation and history of partnership with the team. And this is what creates the differentiation of blockchain. Looking at those stories, I thought I could take a bet on it. Honestly, I think I was just lucky with that.
Then at that time you come in and prepare for another round. If we roughly calculate the fully diluted valuation now, how many times do you think it would be? Is it around 50 to 100 times? Not quite that much.
At that time, I invested in a company called Mission Labs. It's a token with SUI. You'd get another token. It was a condition where I would get 3 tokens, getting 2 more. But if you look at it overall, it's still several times over, but it's locked up and going through a vesting process. It's not an exact confirmed multiple. I think it'll still be several times over.
I guess they'll probably use this as a thumbnail, right?
The vesting hasn't fully unlocked yet, so they'll probably give it.
We typically always have some common questions that we ask. You know how it always seems like. What should I say? It seems like the number of visitors is a bit low compared to the views. So, I've been keeping an eye on those things to make sure they're coming out well. Code State's founding involved internal operations. Leadership excels, but to invest, you need to engage in meetings and discussions. A significant part was being invested, and of course the leadership is doing a great job, but to invest, you virtually have to have a meeting. You need to keep things moving, but I'm really curious about your time management tips. When you have meetings, you probably have to align with US time quite a bit. I'm really curious about how you manage your time.
Honestly, I feel like there are a lot of areas where I really need to improve. First of all, my main principle these days is, what am I? I set an hourly wage and it is lower than my hourly wage. I was thinking about outsourcing or delegating as much of the work as possible, or at least trying to get it off my plate. I've thoughts on that. So, I really need to focus on whether I have to do this or not. I want to concentrate on the things that I do best, that I enjoy, and that I can excel at. If it's something that takes a long time or is hard for me to do, then whether it's something other team members do or something personal, even if it's not company work. For example, if I'm not good at cleaning or things like that, then that's it. I started thinking about solving the problem by outsourcing. So, in that way, I only do things that I can do well. I think I'm trying to figure out how to make some time for myself.
Yes, you are now. How do you usually manage your physical fitness?
I have a lot of room for improvement in this area too. Recently, I've been seeing some great entrepreneurs. Also, the investors got together to work out. I joined a gym, so I go there to work out together and also take some classes. Mandatory, compulsory. I schedule classes and go there. I try to manage my fitness by doing running and strength training.
Yeah, are you talking about the place in the Patio 9 building? Oh, yeah, that's right. I've heard a lot of people talking about that place. I see that you're feeling motivated. I really need to work out hard. Good. How do you see it? The team grew from just a few dozen people to even 200. If you look at it from that perspective, I think you might have some know-how about managing people. Relationships can be with internal team members, but they can also be with external organizations. In a way, it could also be about investor relations, and there's know-how in managing relationships. What kind of things are there?
Each of us has our own ideas about fitness management. I do have a recommendation, though. Yeah, it's short, but sleep is really important. I'm investing in my sleep. My life has really improved a lot right now. Actually, where are you sleeping? I think it's really important to find the right way to sleep since we spend almost a third of our lives doing it. So back then, I also looked for a mattress that was suitable for my sleep. I found a sleep mattress. Based on the mattress that suits me, I created a sleeping environment that I prefer. I try to get some sleep and make it a bit more comfortable. So before, no matter how much I sleep in the environment I was looking for, I'm tired and have nightmares. Many of the stiff and uncomfortable things in my body have been resolved. Right now, I'm really sleeping well, and I feel like it's helping a lot with my energy recovery. So I'm looking for the right sleeping mattress that perfectly fits me. Even though it costs a little, this can be used for more than 10 years. I think of it as a big asset investment, so I recommend investing in it.
What kind of product is it?
I think this might sound like a mattress promotion. I found something that works well for me, but it might be different for everyone else. I think it might vary from person to person since I chose a product at that stage. It's a product called Dexiana. I didn't know it all either. Now that you're getting married, should you make up your mind and start investing? First, I tried Simmons and the General ones, and they all worked well for me. But since it's such a high-end product, it's hard for me to recommend it outright. Still, if there's an area in life where you can make a big investment, I think investing in sleep is a good idea. I haven't tried it myself, but there's a startup called 8 Sleep. There is an overseas startup, IT-based. It also tracks your sleeping environment and controls the temperature. It's a mattress that sets up the sleeping environment in various optimal ways. I was also thinking about trying that out.
Then, why haven't we introduced tech tools like Eiley did?
I looked into it, and Dexiana, a pre-tech product, was so satisfying to me. The mattress isn't just for me. I share it with my wife. I'm figuring out how to set up my side differently from hers. I can set it up differently, you know. Being satisfied, no changes. If I need a new mattress for a space or kid. If I need to get a new mattress for a kid or something like that. When I said that I needed to put more mattresses in the new space, the price is reasonable and it seems like it will be available again. I'm thinking about trying out some IT-based mattresses.
Sounds good. I should look into 8 Sleep and Dexiana. Sounds good. What's your know-how on relationships? But actually,
By keeping in constant contact with people, I think it's a bit vulnerable to things that are well sustained and develop well over a long period of time. Myself too, and also to some of my coworkers. I think I'm lacking in motivating myself and things like that. Still, lately I've been trying to do something. At every point in my life, those people have been there for me. There are times when I suddenly remember those moments when people helped me, and I'm really grateful for that. Even if it's been a while or if it's a random context, I try to reach out and send a message. I'm trying to send messages expressing my gratitude. So even when I reach out after a long time, a lot of people are really happy to hear from me. Just remembering those moments can help rekindle the relationship. It seems like it creates a lot of new conversations that I can learn from again. So I just think about expressing my gratitude whenever it comes to mind. People who do it regularly also make gram. I don't think I can get to that level, but it would be nice to make it to the 80th birthday. I send a message when I think of it, saying I appreciated those memories. If there are things we can talk about together in those conversations, I want to support the things I can help with in the community at that time. On the flip side, if they ask me for help, I also help and do things in a different way, just from time to time. While expressing gratitude, we talk about how we can help each other. For me, it's a pay-it-forward thing as I've also been helped. Something about me. I also got a lot of help with pay-forward. With that mindset, I help without expecting anything in return. I assist where I can, and sharing help keeps relationships alive and growing. I also want to talk about the help I received. I feel like those relationships keep staying alive and vibrant.
That's great. Having you around. What do you think money is?
I see it as a tool that undoubtedly helps create happiness. In any case, when it comes to living our lives, I believe the biggest goal or direction in life is to live happily. So, to be happy, being healthy both physically and mentally is really important. They also say that relationships with family, friends, and colleagues are important. You can't ignore money either. So money doesn't solve all problems. Still, there are a lot of problems that can be solved with money. I think it's a good tool for creating happiness.
Sounds good. In a way, you also had some internship experience, right? So how did you end up diving into entrepreneurship? Where do you think that confidence exactly comes from?
Well, when I first started, like I mentioned, I didn't really know much about it, so I was just figuring things out as I went along. Looking back, I think the support from my family really helped me take on challenges. From the time I was young, at every stage of my growth, when it comes to suddenly doing something new or making a choice. You give advice, yet my family's support mattered most. As a result, when you make your final choice, you will believe in it and support it. Support from family and things like that. When I think back to when I first started, that was probably the biggest driving force. So, of course, I have my own tendencies and temperament. That's why I started a business and took on a challenge, because I had that kind of support base. I think that really helped me find the courage.
That's right. When do you think you were exactly the happiest? It could be when I'm working, or it could be something personal. When you think about the times you were the happiest, what comes to mind?
Honestly, I didn't really get it until I experienced it myself. I had thought that might be the case, but I recently had a baby. Oh, congratulations. So I thought that would be good too. It gives me a happiness that's way bigger than I expected. So I look at the child and watch the process the child has to go through. I'm also thinking a lot about how to raise them while communicating with friends. In the process of having a conversation, it's like this creature that looks like me, unconditionally following along. I also cry sometimes, but then a creature that resembles me appears. The act of communicating and talking is more difficult than you might think. It really gives me a huge sense of satisfaction and happiness. These days, I'm really finding a lot of satisfaction and gratitude when it comes to my child.
Oh, that's great. I'm actually planning for a second child right now, and I'm really looking forward to it. Personally, I ask everyone who comes here these questions, and it seems like everyone talks about their kids. A lot of people who are married say this. I really think I'm looking forward to it. So, on the flip side, when was the hardest time for you? Of course, there was the crisis at the company earlier, but
I think it was during that time I mentioned earlier. I had to let go of a lot of people within the company. When the company suddenly got shaken up and there was a lot of chaos, I also faced a lot of attacks. I have a social responsibility for those kinds of attacks. You could say I have to endure it, but at the end of the day, I'm still human. I saw so many people attacking me and criticizing me. When I heard regrets and stories like this, I thought I was a bit strong. I started to feel a bit confused and found myself struggling with my own feelings. But still, as I said before, since there is another foundation that supports me, I am thinking about it again. I can start over again and continue working again. I think it was another opportunity. Sounds good. Sounds good.
yeah, almost. Right now, you could say that. The students at Code States. I've seen quite a few people starting their own businesses, especially among those from there. So, for those newbie entrepreneurs, this is something you should definitely be careful about. So, if I were to give about 3 pieces of advice, what would they be?
One thing is to stay humble throughout the process of running a business. I think it's really important to stay humble and not get too full of yourself. As you go along, you might start to think that your way is the only right way. Then you might miss out on other opportunities. Sometimes, when you need to make a change, you can't, and you just stick to the way you've been doing things, without getting complacent or asking for help from others. There are times when people end up running their business all by themselves. So, it seems like most of it comes from that process of getting too cocky. So, I can always learn, be humble, and grow. You must have an attitude of considering opportunities. I believe that entrepreneurs can also develop and grow every year in order to keep learning and growing. I think it's important to have an attitude of not getting too cocky. I've been thinking that it would be nice to have a bit more time for myself. And also, as well, I think there are a lot of people who just overthink things. As you keep preparing, you start to notice the things that you're lacking. There are times when time keeps passing, and time again passes by ministers. Because I kept adding more, I was worried to some extent. If you're ready, then do it. I think it would be great if we could keep trying and taking action. I feel like opportunities really come up through that process of taking action and trying things out. In my own process of thinking things through, most of the regrets come from the things that we didn't do. I think most of the regrets come from the things we didn't do or just overthought without trying. In the process of doing business, we have to try many things and take on many challenges. I think it would be great if we could create opportunities. And the last one is also in business. I haven't really thought much about how to structure my business or what principles I should follow while running it. If you run a business without setting guidelines, your direction may become unclear. My own sense of direction isn't firm. I keep feeling my direction is scattered, swaying around. It's like I can't find my footing. I often run my business on impulse. It feels like I can't really get a clear direction. I also do a lot of business intuitively and spontaneously. I had made a lot of decisions and set a clear direction. Team members get confused. Establish clear standards. I myself rely a lot on my intuition when making decisions. I think I've become too dependent on others, so I've established some standards and principles. I was thinking about doing business based on that direction. I feel like I've got a clear framework of thought in my head. Looking at the business, I question my direction. I keep wondering if I'm really heading in the direction I want with this business. I keep thinking about whether I'm really doing this business as I make decisions. So, it's key to have your values. I feel you should keep reviewing them. I think it would be good to keep updating and adjusting that as we go. Sounds good.
Now, we've finished all the prepared questions. So that's why. Since you mentioned that we came for the podcast recording, I'm curious to know how you felt about it.
I watch a lot of these podcasts from overseas. So, people who are interested in watching from overseas are also appearing. I was thinking it would be great if there were more podcasts like this in Korea. This is a global version, but still, it's fun to participate in this podcast and talk about it. I thought it would be great to create more opportunities like this.
Sounds good. If you were to think of some guest recommendations for our podcast, who comes to mind? I'm curious about who you're thinking of.
There must be some of you out there. So, a bit more about that. Are you thinking of any business people? Or what kind of target audience do you see as the main focus?
I am a founder or someone with leadership. I think anyone who is in that position would be great.
Yeah, like us who work in an office building. The founder of a company called XYZ, Sung Jae Hwang. There are a lot of interesting stories. He was also a co-founder of Future Play. He also has experience selling a company he co-founded to Samsung. He also established an investment company as a subsidiary in the crypto space. He has invested a lot and is still actively investing as an individual. He's also investing with us. There are businesses like robot cafes. It seems like there will be a lot of topics to discuss.
Okay, we'll organize the information later and introduce it to you. So this person is also investing in crypto.
I've heard that you've achieved quite a bit. And then there are also various hacking issues and various security issues. I also had some regrets and experiences regarding the issue. I've heard that you've seen such significant upsides in crypto as well as downsides. It really made me think about how much experience you've had.
So I think we can just wrap up today's shoot here. Thank you for all your hard work over such a long time. Thank you.